Story 1. Rejecting cookies should be easy. No one should have to spend 10 minutes turning off each cookie. All websites should have a reject all button, and charging users to reject cookies should be banned. Story 2. Buying a house can involve lawyers' fees, hidden costs, and misinformation. Many of these issues exist because where people spend money, there is profit to be made. Story 3. Printers. Give me a printer with a single power button and nothing else. I don't need a touch screen or 10 different buttons. Just print the document when I click print. Story 4. Speaking to a live agent rather than an automated system. Well, that blew up a little. Thank you for the award. Story 5. Scanning a quick response code and installing an application at a restaurant just to read the menu is unnecessary. Why make something that used to be simple so complicated? Story 6. Getting a better deal on your television and internet. Threaten to cancel your services. Escalate to a customer retention manager. Schedule a cancellation date. Wait for them to call you back with a better offer. Aim to keep your bill the same or lower than it was last year. Frustration with Canadian telecommunications companies. Story 7. Buying a car should be simple. You should be able to find a car online, get transparent financing online, and complete the purchase at the dealership in less than 30 minutes. When I bought my car 5 years ago, I had to meet with my credit union to get financing, which took 1 hour. I called ahead and told the dealership to have the car ready. After a 15-minute test drive, I told them I was ready to negotiate. After we agreed on a price, they started negotiating financing, and I had to tell them repeatedly that I already had a cashier's check. Once I got into the business manager's office, he was haggling about lower monthly payments and trying to sell me an extended warranty. I told him that if he tried to sell me anything else besides the car, I would leave. I was at the dealership for over 2 hours, even though I had already chosen a car before I arrived and was ready to buy after a short test drive. It was an absurd waste of time. Story 8. Third-party software that large companies use to manage employee performance is often a Rube Goldberg machine. I have encountered many of these systems over the past few decades. They turn simple concepts into dozens of needless steps and subroutines. I am convinced the primary goal of the firms selling these systems is to keep them as large and complex as possible to convince clients they are essential. It is a self-licking ice cream cone. Story 9. Workday job applications. Why do you need to create a new account for each company? Is that not the point of having a unified job posting service, as Indeed does? Story 10. Microwaves. I do not want 16 buttons and a clock. Growing up, we had an ugly, simple microwave with a single dial. You turned it on, it counted down the time, and then it dinged. I love that box. Story 11. Why does the Transportation Security Administration sometimes give me the 9th degree, while other times I just place my bag in a tray and walk through a metal detector? I fly through a few airports regularly and can never be sure what will happen. Story 12. Central processing unit naming schemes are major offenders. Snapdragon with its mobile budget chips, Apple with skipped generations, advanced micro devices Ryzen mobile series, and Intel's new, confusing naming scheme are examples. I am sure Samsung, Huawei, and MediaTek have their own issues that I cannot recall. Story 13. Filing taxes in the United States can be frustrating. The Internal Revenue Service already has everything calculated and knows exactly how much you owe. However, it requires you to complete a complex tax return yourself so it can identify any errors. Story 14. Everything related to bicycles frustrates me. I like a good bicycle, but why is nothing ever standardized? No accessory fits, even though I spent hours checking that I have the exact model it is meant to fit. Story 15. Rubik's Cube. Why not just make the cube all the same color? Story 16. Obtaining government-required documents is a legal obligation, yet somehow the most difficult to secure. Story 17. Hotel showers should come with an instruction manual on how to get them to produce hot water. Story 18. I always end up in a dangerous struggle with scissors when trying to open toy packaging. Story 19. Tax forms. The government knows how much I make and takes portions of it throughout the year. They should tell me how much I owe, since they are brazen enough to tell me when I am wrong. Story 20. Sirius XM radio subscriptions. Starting, stopping, and changing. They say you can do everything on their website, but you almost always have to call eventually. Story 21. Passwords are complex. Creating strong, unique passwords for each account and then remembering them all. Story 22. 1. Taxes in the United States. 2. Healthcare in the United States. 3. Student loans in the United States. Story 23. Replacing windshield wipers. Every time I get a new set, the connections have changed. A YouTube video shows how to do it. Seems easy until you try. Story 24. Taxes. Government, you owe us money. How much? Government, you have to figure that out. So I can pay whatever I think is fair? Government. No, we know exactly how much, but we are not telling. How about this amount? Government. No, you will go to jail and you will still owe us money. Story 25. The American healthcare system depends on private insurance tied to your employer and the state where you live. Story 26. The names Neve and Siobhan are pronounced Neve and Siobhan. Story 27. I am trying to contact support. What happened to email? I do not want to stop what I am doing to make a phone call if it is not urgent. I want to send an email. Story 28. Whenever I expect something to work one way but discover it behaves differently and unintuitively, this is how it feels. Story 29. Most of the new eco-friendly gas cans are like this. Just let me push a button to release the gas. Damn it. Story 30. Getting a doctor's appointment. 1. Ring the doctor. They have no voicemail or queue initially, and service is first come, first served, so everyone calls at exactly 8 a.m. and no one gets through. 2. Call. The line disconnects. Call again. 3. Repeat this many times until it is 9:15 a.m. 4. You are now in the queue. 5. Listen to the same 3 bars of music. Then hear, you are number N in the queue. Please hold. 6. A receptionist answers, it is nearly 10 a.m. 7. Describe what is wrong in detail. If the receptionist dislikes the sound of your voice, decides it is not a real problem, or you are uncomfortable discussing a personal matter with someone whose only qualification is answering the phone, you may not get the response you need. 8. You are given a time when the doctor will call. 9. Wait. 10. The doctor calls and listens to your description again. They either decide it is nothing and recommend rest, or they decide it requires an appointment. That appointment may be any time within the next 3 weeks and is non-negotiable. 11. Wait 3 weeks and either get better or die. Story 31. This form relates to government forms. Submit it to verify that you are alive. Story 32. Any software at your workplace is probably not bad. Everything just takes forever to load, and you have to click through too many screens to do basic tasks. Story 33. The whole industry around how to remove the shell from an egg. Boil the egg, crack the bottom on a hard surface, and peel off the shell. Story 34. Coding. Why did we create laptops and then make them so hard to use? Story 35. Childproofing. If you need 17 layers of plastic around a small toy just to keep a child from grabbing it and choking on it, then you are not a good parent. I can understand childproofing sharp items, but this is ridiculous. Story 36. Renting a car can be faster if you go to your preferred company, but if you are stranded and walk up to a counter, the wait can be ridiculous. Story 37. Building boxed furniture from superstores such as Walmart, IKEA, Target, and others. Story 38. Installing a baby car seat that feels stable and safe. Good grief, it shouldn't be this difficult. Story 39. I put the change into my pocket after making a cash purchase. Story 40. Benefit systems are needlessly complicated. You need teams to manage the application process, assess eligibility, combat fraud, and conduct outreach so those who need the benefit know how to claim it. It was calculated that a universal basic income would be only a 25% increase compared to current benefits, but would almost entirely eradicate child and elderly poverty and benefit the bottom 54% of household incomes. It is even more striking when you consider the knock-on effects. Because of how much this would benefit the National Health Service and other public services, it would be only an estimated 5% increase in overall spending. It could actually be a net saving due to reductions in crime and lower policing and insurance costs. Story 41. Amazon Web Services. If you know what you want to do, navigating Amazon's confusing product names and unnecessary management tools is very painful. I believe this is intentional, so when you quit and move elsewhere, you cannot figure out why you are still being billed. I moved to DigitalOcean. Story 42. Money. The whole system of money and value is overwhelming. I wish it were more like a video game. Laughing out loud. Story 43. Someone already posted about unsubscribing from a service, but I will be more specific. Unsubscribing from Sirius in your car. They treat you like a traitor and a persona non grata. I simply bought a different car. Story 44. There are 8 oven settings, each labeled only with a symbol that gives no indication of its function. Story 45. Local government and utility approvals can be extremely slow. For example, councils may require a multi-step approval and an arborist's report to prune a tree on your own private land. My house required building permits and planning approval, which took 6 months for someone to sign a single sheet of paper, even though plans were approved and compliant according to a private certifier's report. That private certification cost a multi-thousand-dollar fee because councils often do not check drawings here anymore. I built the whole house in 4 months. Split level, concrete slab on ground, 25,000 bricks, intricate roof, and very high raked ceilings. Want to move a lamp post incorrectly installed by the power utility? Can be an 18 to 24-month process. Connecting a power dome to the existing network can take 12 to 18 months for about 1 to 2 hours of actual work. I spent 4 years getting a shopping center approved on a lot zoned for a local shopping center and on a street specifically zoned for commercial premises. There were 0 code variations and no valid reasons to deny it. I had to take the council to court and fought them for approval. The decision took 5 minutes because there was no reason not to approve, but the legal process cost a few $100,000. The council spent millions fighting me, millions of dollars of ratepayers' money, leaving a large vacant lot on one of the trendiest streets in the city for years. Story 46. Figuring out my maximum capacity for Google Photos and Google Drive storage. Story 47. United States tax law is approximately 76,000 pages. Most of it is designed to enrich the rich and force ordinary people to seek help from tax professionals. Story 48. College email systems require you to change your password every few months, while banks and social media often allow you to keep the same password indefinitely. Story 49. Applying for any job involves endless hoops, forms, psychological tests sold to the company by a dishonest consultant, repeated interviews, and more forms. None of these requirements were necessary in years past. Has any process caught frauds or dangerous individuals when a background check would have sufficed? International licensing applications are a joke. Instead of accepting another country's process, every country requires its own, staffed by people who erect barriers that prevent approval. Jumping through hoops does not guarantee quality. The application to work as a doctor in Ireland is as thick as a phone book. Story 50. I sued a company and won in small claims court, but because they are in a different province, I have to jump through so many hoops to get anyone to do anything. It is nearly costing me the same amount I would get back if they are ever forced to pay. Story 51. Printer drivers on Windows. Download this 300 megabyte package that includes drivers, software, the entire Sears catalog, a link to buy ink, and proprietary wireless setup software. Only after these are installed can you see the printer. Then run another program to allow Windows to communicate with it. My phone just says we found a printer nearby ready to use. Story 52. Technical support when you work for a company that contracts out information technology services. Story 53. Pizza menus are confusing. If they must use dynamic pricing because of busy and slack periods, a simple percentage system would suffice. For example, 20% off before 5 p.m. The labyrinthine pizza menu makes me choose other takeaways. Story 54. Getting Microsoft products to use the correct profile in Microsoft Edge. No, Microsoft Edge. I do not want to use that email address to access OneDrive. I want this one. I know I clicked the right account. Microsoft, this has been happening for almost 15 years. Fix it. Story 55. In my opinion, navigating United States health insurance copayment and deductible rules, in-network and out-of-network status, medically necessary and exploratory classifications, and diagnostic and preventive rules is deliberately convoluted. The system is designed to extract more money from customers and to discourage people from using the benefits they pay for. Story 56. Monthly charitable donations. I have been donating monthly to a charity for a while. When I received a promotion at work, I wanted to increase my donation. There was no way to edit the donation amount on their website, even though signing up to donate was easy, and when I called I was met with an automated phone menu. Forget that. Story 57. Playing phone tag with someone who insisted on hearing a voice for 2 days, only to have a 3-minute conversation end with a yes or no answer. Story 58. There are many examples and people say laughing out loud. Resetting a password only to be told it cannot be the same as your previous one. Story 59. Filing a tax return requires completing a form listing all your income and tax information, and you should not cheat. The government already has copies of your forms and can calculate how much you owe. If that is the case, why does the Internal Revenue Service not send taxpayers a completed form to sign or dispute? Several times there have been attempts to have the Internal Revenue Service prepare returns for taxpayers, but lobbyists persuaded politicians not to pass those measures. The lobbyists were hired by H&R Block and Intuit, the makers of TurboTax. Story 60. I am calling to make payments. You do not need all this verification. I assure you that nobody is hacking my finances and paying my bills. Story 61. Money. Most of the problems in the world are caused by greed and poverty. Story 62. Buying a house is complicated. Too many people are involved, and everyone needs to make money from what they do. Story 63. People who make a big deal out of things that don't need it. Just chill. Why make life more unpleasant than it needs to be? Story 64. Microwaves with 20 buttons instead of the classic 2 knobs. Story 65. Taxes. The government knows how much it expects from me. Tell me that number and let me appeal if necessary. Why all this back and forth? Story 66. The plots of most video games made in Japan and many anime are so complicated, often nonsensical, and full of holes that most plot summaries read like the notebook of a person with schizophrenia. Story 67. I am sitting in the Department of Motor Vehicles for the 3rd time today because every person I have spoken to gives me different information and a new pile of forms to fill out that require signatures from someplace other than the office. I am starting my 4th hour here. Story 68. If you're into recording studio work, you will use digital audio workstations. Some are user-friendly, such as Audacity, but others are widely considered unnecessarily complicated. Story 69. I can never wrap my head around how gyroscopes work. Story 70. Setting up a new printer is never as easy as it should be. Story 71. For about 2 months now, I have been unable to access my email account. Story 72. Learning the rules of a new card game when you have been drinking. Story 73. At my dentist's office, one receptionist answers the phone, yet the phone menu offers 4 options. It does not matter which option you select. She still has to answer the phone. Story 74. Divisive politics. A waste of time, money, resources, and lives. I am not sure what needs to happen. Consider allegations that Clarence Thomas accepted bribes in the form of a luxury recreational vehicle and expensive trips, and that Republican senators were blackmailed to support former President Donald Trump. You could not get a movie funded if you wrote a script about these events. It would seem unbelievable. Story 75. Software licenses, especially server operating systems and multi-user software. The tax code. Story 76. In Japan, I just get a bill, go to the convenience store and pay it. Of course, the federal and state governments know how much I owe in the United States. Otherwise, what is the incentive to pay the right amount? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.